thank you very much for coming along today, and well done to all the readers so far. My name is Martin. I am the M in MN Stewart, and before anyone accuses me of intellectual pomposity, it's purely because someone's got the same name as me already and is out there writing books. It's nothing to do with trying to emulate J.K. Rowling, although I would have her money. My story came out of lockdown as well. Like most people, I was faced with the choice of either writing a book or learning how to bake sourdough bread, and I chose writing a book. I spent 5 years so far getting this far. It's now self-published, like most books are these days. My story is a crime novel stroke coming-of-age story. It's set in 1985 in an archetypal seaside town when life was much more simple than it is today. There are no phones, there is no internet, there is no Google. All we had back then was a commitment to be at a place that we said we were going to be. And that underpins a bit of the story to a degree. There are two protagonists in this nostalgic story. A young, vulnerable schoolgirl called Heather. She's shy, she's shy, she's retiring, she has no friends. Her family is falling to pieces behind the scenes. She suspects her mother is having an affair. Her father is collapsing under grief after the death of her young brother. Slowly but surely, Heather is being erased from her own life. On the other side of the equation, we have Stanton, who is the archetypal bad boy, the face of an angel, the heart of a devil. He's a dysfunctional 19-year-old youth trying to be a gangster in Morecambe. He's on the wrong side of the tracks. He's from the wrong side of town. He's certainly on the wrong side of the law. And lately, he's been on the wrong side of some very bad decisions. He goes to a jetty, a stone jetty in Morecambe. He goes to his favourite cafe at the end to have a cup of tea and a cigarette and contemplate some very poor decisions that he's made. While he's there, he looks through the window and he sees a shy, retiring young schoolgirl pacing nervously around, acting very strangely. He doesn't give another thought. He goes back to his cup of tea, he goes back to his cigarette, he looks back up again, but this time the young girl has stepped over the railings, is leaning forward and is just about to jump into the sea. Stanton intervenes and sets off a chain of events where everything will be different going forward. I'm just going to read you the pages where Stanton and Heather first have their connection. I'll warn you now, there is some swearing, so anyone of a nervous disposition, look away now. What the fuck are you doing? The girl spun round at the shock of hearing a voice from behind, strengthening her grip on the railing as she pulled herself in. Standing confidently in front of her was an older boy. He was tall and bare-chested, smirking with a barely lit cigarette clinging loosely between his lips. Her cheeks reddened under his confident, unblinking gaze. Sensing the immediate danger had passed, Stanton took his time. I said, pausing while he breathed out some smoke, "What the fuck are you doing?" The girl seemed lost for words as she looked down at the sea, shuffling her feet more securely on the jetty's ledge. It was obvious she was scared, and Stanton decided to play it cool rather than make the situation any worse. You see, I was sat drinking my tea, minding my own business. I look up and I see you walking around out here. 1 minute over there, next minute over there, he pointed with his cigarette. The next minute, you're jumping over the railings. He pointed to where the girl was standing. Just seemed a bit weird. The girl looked over her shoulder at the gurgling, fast-running sea slipping away below her. As she looked back, Stanton could see that she was crying. It caught him off guard. There was more to this than he had first thought. He softened his voice and delivered his most engaging smile. "My brew's getting cold." "Sorry about that," said the girl, finding a voice through the tears. "Ah, so it speaks." "I'm not sorry, it tastes like piss." "Still, I paid for it and I'm going to drink it." They both stood looking at each other, a silence falling like a curtain between them. There was nothing but the noise of a seaside town humming gently in the background. "How about this?" Stanton said, breaking the tension. "Why don't I buy you both a brew?" He had nowhere else to be, and besides the busier he was, the less chance there was of bumping into Mickey. "I've had better offers," the girl joked weakly, dabbing her cheeks with her sleeve, wobbling slightly as she took one hand off the railing. "Careful. These are new boots. I don't plan on getting them wet." The silent curtain fell between them again. "What if I throw in some cold chips as well? I'm all heart." "Come on then. They'll be closing soon." Stanton turned and walked back towards the cafe. "Don't forget your bag," he shouted without looking back. As he headed inside, he checked in the window of the cafe. He could see the girl climb slowly back through the railings and unhook a bag from the statue. "I'm over there," he said, indicating a table in the corner where his jacket and t-shirt hung over the back of a chair. Weaving around a closely arranged maze of tables, the girl sat down and waited. "Here." Stanton put down 2 mugs of steaming tea, sitting opposite her so that she had no choice but to look directly at him. He felt a bit sorry for her. She seemed lost and confused, but he couldn't help but be curious about what was going on. "So," he said after a while, "out there by the railings, what were you doing? Walking up and down? Or looked a bit strange?" The girl didn't reply and instead looked behind him at the door. Stanton followed her eyes. "You're free to go if you want. No skin off my nose." He laid his head back and casually blowed smoke rings up at the ceiling. "Oh, in case you're wondering, my name's Stanton." He held out his hand, which the girl ignored, so jokingly he moved it closer. "Heather," she finally conceded. "And do you mind not being so nosy?" She moved the chair a little further away. "It's got nothing to do with you, so mind your own business." Stanton smiled and drew on a cigarette. "Makes sense," he said, laughing. The girl looked properly at Stanton for the first time. "What does?" she asked. Stanton knew he was an intimidating figure. He was tall, with heavy boots and shaved hair. It crossed his mind whether she might be scared of him. "Want a drag?" He offered her his cigarette. "No, thank you." He followed her eyes towards the door again, trying to read her mind. "No, not at all," or "No, not just yet." Stanton stopped himself from saying anything else. He leaned back slowly. He knew he was teasing her unnecessarily. "When I say it makes sense, I mean I reckon you don't even know yourself what you're doing out there. Am I right?" Heather's eyes filled with tears again. "Here, you've not touched your tea," he gently handed her a mug. Heather held it and took a few sips, the steaming hot tea feeling good in a dry mouth. The drink was exactly what she needed, and it made her feel slightly better. "So, you sit in cafes all day long and spy on girls, do you? That's the kind of thing the police might want to know about." Stanton smiled. "Not really. Not all the time." He put 2 large teaspoons of sugar in his tea and stirred it. "That's far too much sugar. You won't have any teeth left. Your mum will have to feed you baby food when you get older." Heather laughed at her own joke. "Yeah, well, it's what makes me so sweet." "So, were you?" "Sorry? Were you about to jump in the sea?" "You can keep ignoring the question, but I'll only keep asking it until you tell me, or until you get up and leave." He nodded his head confidently towards the door. Heather was in no rush to answer. She didn't think this handsome boy could be much older than her, and yet he seemed so self-assured and worldly wise, everything that she wasn't. "I don't know," she said truthfully, after a long silence. Stanton took a drink. "I think you would have jumped." "Maybe," Heather said. "No, maybe about it. I could see it in your face when you first walked past. If I hadn't turned up to save the day, right now, the crabs would be eating your legs." Stanton had meant it as a joke, but Heather lifted her head quickly as he said those words, horrified by what he was saying and by the fact that he might be right. Stanton handed her a napkin. "What's this for?" "For you, when you start crying." "Who says I will?" "Me. And I'll tell you why." He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. "Whatever put you on the wrong side of those railings is still out there. You might pretend to yourself it's not, but it is. You might decide to run away from it, and if you do, the door's just there. But whatever it is, I guarantee it will be outside waiting for you. If that's what you want, you can take your bag and leave." Stanton picked up a bag and handed it to her. "Don't worry about giving me the money for the tea. That's on me." He leant back confidently. "Or," he said, pausing for a reaction. Heather put down her bag. "Or?" Stanton leaned forward again. "Will you tell Uncle Stanton all about it? After which he'll tell you exactly what you need to do to make life better, so he doesn't have to come back down here and save your arse all over again." Stanton's perfect smile drew Heather in. He looked like trouble, but at this moment he seemed about the only person in the world who knew she existed. "I never meant to actually do anything out there. At least I don't think so. You've got to be pretty brave to kill yourself, and I'm learning today that's not me. I'm not very brave." Stanton had one arm draped over his head and was smoking with his free hand, his blonde underarm hair hanging like spindly cobwebs. "I think you're brave." "Really?" "Yeah. Well, for a start, you're drinking that tea." Heather gave a genuine laugh. Yes, perhaps the sea would have tasted better after all. She breathed out deeply, her shoulders rounding as though they were breaking under the pressure. It's all such a mess. Without her thinking or pausing, words started to fall from Heather's mouth. My family's falling apart. My parents fight and argue all the time. No one actually talks to each other. And it's like I'm not there sometimes. It's like I'm invisible. I don't have many friends. I'm stuck in the middle of class, in the middle of my parents who don't love each other. And I'm in the middle of everything, and all the time, going nowhere. As Heather began to unburden herself, Stanton sat back and listened. He was a stranger to her, and yet she was telling him the problems she had in her life right now. Stanton listened impassively while she described spying guiltily on her dad crying at the breakfast table. Heather told him about school, about how she couldn't stop feeling sad all the time. She told him about a silly schoolgirl crush she had on someone from afar, and how he didn't even know she existed. Stanton sat motionless, listening intently throughout, his face refusing to betray any judgment or reaction to what he was hearing. There was a lot of information coming his way, far more than he'd been expecting when he'd first asked her if she wanted that cup of tea. When Heather finally finished talking, he scanned her face. He might be cynical and from the wrong side of the tracks, but he knew a troubled soul when he saw one. Look, if it's any consolation, that crush, Shane, was it? Sean? Well, whatever his name is, he sounds like a right arsehole to me. Heather laughed before quickly composing herself. But at least I didn't cry. You were wrong about that. Yeah, well done. See, I'm already making you tougher, all part of my charm. Do you know what you need? Please don't say another cup of tea. Stanton leaned forward and dropped his cigarette in Heather's half-finished drink. That should make it taste better. I was still drinking that. Stanton grabbed the momentum and the change in sentiment. Not now, you're not. What I think you need is some sunshine on those freckles. Sunshine? You've had a shit day. I'm going outside to sit and catch the last of the sun and think about me taking over the world. Are you coming? It would have been so easy to say no, but instead Heather answered quickly before she could change her mind. Why not? Well, I should really ring home and... No, you shouldn't. He shot back. Fuck 'em. Come on. I'm in charge of you for the next hour or so, not them. Stanton picked up his cigarettes and loose change off the table and pulled his t-shirt back over his muscular body, his tight torso inches from Heather's eyeline. Putting on his jacket, he brushed past her and headed for the door. And gone.